Four, three, two, one. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech live on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're having a fantastic Thursday thus far, at least going better at least than iOS 16 seems to be going internally at Apple right now, because allegedly it's just not turning out to be as good as maybe some of us were hoping. And yes, I'm bunching iOS 16 and iPadOS 16 together because, let's be honest, iOS and iPadOS, there's not a ton of differences. It's basically the same OS. I can't think of two operating systems made by Apple that share more similarities. I mean, iPadOS can run iOS apps in the back of the framework and everything. iPadOS is essentially just a marketing term, and it's not really a separate design or anything. It's essentially replace calculator and weather app with picture-in-picture. Not even that. With split view multitasking, because iPhone has picture-in-picture now, and then also remove optimized battery charging, remove Apple Watch connectivity. You know, remove a bunch of things. And at this point, yeah, the more I think about it, I think add a couple Apple Pencil things, I guess. So replace optimized battery charging and Apple Watch features with Apple Pencil features. There you have your differences. But Mark Gurman is telling us that Apple's been developing mostly notification redesigns with iOS 16. At least this is what the more recent reports are. And of course, I have a huge laundry list of requests for iPadOS 16. A laundry list is a bit of an understatement. There's honestly an insane number of changes I think we all want with iPadOS 16, and all Mark Gurman has told us is coming with the iPads is essentially slightly redesigned multitasking. Okay, I'm adding the slightly. A redesigned multitasking launcher, which, how many freaking multitasking options do we have to come up with for the iPad at this point? Hey, Bart Jansen, thank you for your support, for being a member for 8 months. Appreciate it. And, oh, who else is here? Clean Banyo, Marngel, Luke Spivey, welcome. E-uploads equals iOS Lite. Yeah, because it's a bigger screen, you gotta remove more things, right? Would you like dark iOS icons, so instead of a white background, they all have black when you turn on dark mode? Yeah, that would be cool. I've still always been in favor of themes, like theme packs, where, I mean, people are already doing that. I've actually run into people in my personal life that are doing the whole Siri shortcut thing to make all their iOS icons look different. These are not techie people I've run into that are, you know, not watching my videos or not watching, you know, Marquez or anything, but they're just interested in customizing the iOS home screen so that every app has its own style. And I think if Apple kind of streamlined that and made an APK for developers to optimize for, of like, here's a popular style and other apps can optimize their icon, or that style could have a bunch of template icons for the most popular apps. You know, some of the most common apps people use on our phones could be really transitioned over. If someone wants like the anamorphic or skeuomorphic design, where things feel a bit more material and a little bit less minimal. Some people want, you know, that iOS 6 and earlier look where things felt like real objects and had a lot of detail and shine and reflections and that kind of thing. So I could see someone wanting that theme pack to be supported, and you can just kind of switch between them depending on what iPhone what theme pack fits you best. Some people want a really, really dark, like monotone theme pack, or like you said, a dark mode where like there's very little light and color and everything's just kind of flat and stealth looking, and maybe that helps save battery life in some regards, but it's also just a style some people may want. iPadOS is a combination of iOS and macOS, yet somehow it fails to deliver the full features of iOS or macOS. That's a good point. Yeah, please don't spam. I just want the iPhone 14 to have USB-C. That would probably be the most like tempting feature for me. I wouldn't upgrade for USB-C alone, but if they did that, it would definitely be something I'd be like really happy about and like tempted to upgrade for. But yeah, no rumor is claiming it's going to happen at this point. That redesigned multitasking for iPadOS better mean floating Windows multitasking. I think that would be great if you could actually pick up an app just like you can on macOS and run it within a window, but I know that the resizing thing would be fairly complicated for iPadOS to adopt. So I'm just saying, run the iPhone version. We're kind of already doing that with split view, you know, when you have like the column view when you're splitting between apps where like one app has like 25% and the other app has 75%. It's basically just grabbing the iPhone version of that app and extending the length of it a little bit, which isn't that hard. So if you could just open an app and run the iPhone version of it and keep that running in the background as you were doing different things, yeah, it would be a lot closer in the right direction of becoming more like macOS, but still got a long ways to go, that's for sure. Would you upgrade to the Apple Watch Series 8 for a new design? I'd be very shocked if they redesigned it that quickly. I don't think they would go from Series 7 design to something completely different that fast. So, not I wasn't planning to. I don't know exactly what they could do. I think this design is really good, and I was kind of on the fence about upgrading last year. And the only reason I did was because I found a good deal on my Series 6. I found a good buyer, is what I mean. Someone bought my Series 6 for a good price, and that offset the cost a lot of my Series 7. And I was like, okay, I think the 7 looks really cool. But I got the stainless steel and sapphire specifically because I felt like the display has changed. And usually Apple Watch displays do not change year over year. It's pretty rare to see any kind. There's only been one other time. Basically, it was, the first Apple Watch in 2015. And then no changes in the display size or shape until 2018, and then no changes until 2021. So they seem to be on a fairly consistent upgrade cycle of the Apple Watch being tinkered a little bit, at least in terms of the display, every 3 years. So I'm assuming we're going to get the Series 7 kind of display style across new Apple Watches for the next 3 years, meaning 2024 would be when we get an updated design, and by then maybe my Apple Watch battery will be fried and I'll need a new one. So we'll see. Not the flat edge design though. I've seen concepts of what that looks like. I don't think it looks as cool as the Series 7 does. It actually surpassed my expectations. It ended up looking way better than I anticipated. When are we going to see Siri get better? Year after year, it continues to be so limited and unimpressive. At a minimum, Siri should be able to walk us through all the shortcut options. Yeah, I think something that has always jumped out at me is the fact that most people online all would agree that, Google Assistant is probably the most capable. Some people may say Alexa does certain things better and Siri's dumb. Everyone says Siri's stupid and Siri's dumb. And what I notice is that the best-selling phones in the world all have Siri on them. So the way I interpret that is there's a chance everyday consumers aren't using digital assistants all that much because as far as in Marquez reviews and other tech communities out there have all kind of acknowledged that in terms of total smartness and what has been capable through digital assistants, Google has the lead because it has the power of Google search. So it just has so many follow-up responses pre-built in thanks to the Google Assistant basically just being an extension of Google search. And that means that the Google Assistant is most capable and very, very powerful on the Pixel. And the Pixel does not sell all that well and is riddled with software issues and software complexities. And something tells me that the reason Apple hasn't put that much attention or energy into Siri is because they're not seeing it be utilized all that much for anything more complicated than what Siri can already do. I mean, you can tell Siri to turn on the lights or set a timer or, the basics. Play this song, or now there's Apple Music Voice where you can just say, you can have a subscription plan for Siri, essentially, and she'll play whatever you want, which is weird. But I forgot that existed. Is anyone out there using that? Serious, legitimate question. Are there anybody in the chat that subscribe to Apple Music Voice? Not the full Apple Music, but just the voice plan. I'm curious. So I get the idea that digital assistants are more complicated to use for everyday people, and even when they're smart, there's just this disconnect that goes on when you have to say the hello thing phrase. And I've discovered, at least in my personal life, that a lot of people are just not great at articulation. We actually, in our household, we use the Google Assistant more than Siri because we have smart speakers, and I still use the Google Home Max, by the way. They don't sell that anymore, and I tried to sell it and no one wanted to buy it, so we just decided, okay, we're going to have a really powerful smart speaker in our kitchen, but my wife still uses it, and we have a smart speaker in the bedroom, in the bathroom, that's just what we're using. And still, even though I've been told countless times online the Google Assistant's the best one, that one has the best answers, that one's the most responsive, it still misses things constantly. And I have to give some major props to my wife because she has this special talent of always being able to find a song that Google will play the wrong version of. Like any song she said, like, Google, play this. It will play the wrong version and she'll be like, no, play the one by this artist. And she always has to correct it. And I noticed that even Google, with all of its advanced algorithms and its really, really impressive responses that everyone says, Google's the smartest, Google can do so much more, Siri's so dumb. Despite that, Google is not great at detecting when someone is, trying to explain something and maybe corrects themselves, or the timing thing. Getting the timing right of interacting with a digital assistant has been really, really challenging. Even with Google and even with Siri, everybody's guilty of this. I'm not saying Google sucks and Siri's great. I'm saying they're all pretty close in capability and stupidity. Frankly, we had an Amazon Echo for a while, and we used Alexa, and of course I've had HomePods where I've used Siri, and of course all my Apple devices have Siri on them. And I've just discovered that none of them are very great at understanding context or figuring out, like, oh, this person was pausing for a second. That doesn't mean stop listening. Or this person corrected themselves, but the computer doesn't know how to process, like, oh, they started with this thought and then they changed the thought over here. How do I know which part of the question to address? So it's like, yeah, I agree that Siri feels very neglected. It feels like for several years now they have not addressed Siri in any major way, or made her smarter or gave her more functionality or anything. And yet iPhones seem to keep selling pretty dang well. So I get the impression that everyday people don't care all that much about digital assistants, and it's one of those things that is kind of like how I view smart speakers. Honestly, I think I see that as being the main home for digital assistants is on smart speakers, because it's a device that you're kind of meant to use passively, where you just kind of talk at it and you're like, hey, set a timer or play this song, because it's a speaker. And it's good for dictation here and there, if you're in the middle of something, send a text to so and so and make it say this, those kinds of essential features like that. But really getting at much more than that, people don't like messing around with too much complexity, because it's going to be so much easier to just use the phone or use the touchscreen. And because humans are honestly not all that great at articulation. Think of all the times my birds have come out whackwards on this live stream. Yesterday's EV stream, I kept saying there was a flip that switched in my brain, and it took me a few seconds before I realized I said the wrong thing. But you guys watching the stream are like, that's funny. A computer not understanding someone's articulation or not understanding pauses or changes in thought through a sentence, the computer's like, what do I do? I can't process that. It gets really confused. So it's not that we don't use digital assistants. I just think that the level of functionality they can provide is fairly basic, and Siri covers the basics. Play a song, set a timer, set an alarm. Probably the coolest thing I've seen Google do in recent history, that I'll give them props for, is I still got the magic mouse. I'll put that down. I hope I didn't. I was worried I was going to click it in my pocket. My dad says, play my tunes, and it finds a song called Tunes. That's great. Can you talk about some of the surprise features that will be released at Quadribulia? I can't, because I don't know what they are. But there has been a lot of references in iOS code to a classical Apple Music app, and it hasn't turned into anything. So I keep hearing about that in references in iOS code and that kind of thing. So I would say like a classical Apple Music app or something would be somewhat of a surprise. I'm using my Blackmagic camera. Ironically, I don't use digital assistants while the rest of the family does use them, even though I'm a tech enthusiast while they're not. Well, what do they use them for? Pay attention to that in the family. Like, are they doing... Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Probably the most interesting thing the Google Assistant has been capable of that I didn't know about before was my wife asked for a recipe for a dish, dinner or lunch or something. And the Google Assistant could walk her through... I'm going to list the ingredients, and then I'll go through it step by step. So she'll list the first step and then say, would you like me to continue? Yes or no. And then Okay, here's step 2. Would you like me to continue? Yes or no? So she could, without a display, it would probably be much easier if we had the Nest Hub with a screen or something. But just through the smart speaker alone, was able to walk her through, like, here's the ingredients and here's the steps. I was like, okay, that's probably something Siri couldn't do. That's kind of cool. But we've used it once in the past year. I don't know how long that feature has been there. It may have been there for 5 years. I really don't know. Would you use a 60 hertz iPad Air if it could dual boot? Why the heck would I do that? I have a MacBook with 120 hertz. That's much bigger than an iPad Air. If you're using something with a keyboard and mouse, I want a much larger display than 11 inches. Honestly, this display would be small, even if it could dual boot. So no, I would not put up with 60 hertz just for dual booting. If I'm gonna use the iPad for dual booting, I would want to get it as close as possible to my MacBook Pro, which with the current hardware available, that would mean like maxing out an iPad Pro with the mini LED with 120 hertz and Face ID and Thunderbolt. I would try to get the specs as close as I could to a MacBook, not like the opposite direction. Let's make it worse. Let's give it a worse I/O. Let's make it a smaller display. I don't. If keyboard and mouse input is already hard enough with a 13-inch display. I honestly find my MacBook Pro pretty small for most of my video editing and live streaming and that kind of thing. It feels kind of crammed. Probably just because I got so used to the iMac Pro, which is a 27-inch display, which is why I'm still somewhat in the market for a monitor. There's just no monitor out there that I really love yet. So I even found the 16-inch display too small sometimes. If I don't use it, then probably no one else would find it useful. Correct. That's right. Well, because I'm a techie person, and I use technology more than most. So I compare that to how I use technology and then how other people use it. And I know people in my personal life that use smart speakers, but they're not doing overly complicated things with them. Usually it's play a song, set a timer, set an alarm, and I've never really seen someone use a digital assistant for much more than that. Maybe the occasional fun fact, like, how long is a blue whale? That kind of thing. It's like, it's slightly faster than just pulling out your phone and Googling it. And of course, the smart speaker is just the perfect way to ship a digital assistant, because the kitchen is the most likely place, or the living room or whatever, is the most likely place where maybe your hands are going to be occupied. You're like, you're cooking something, or you're washing your hands, or people are moving about the room, like we're playing, with the dog, or, when you're in your living space, your hands aren't going to be as close to a touchscreen, which is probably going to be much more faster, much more quick and responsive to just looking something up, comparing results. Let's look up the recipe, or, a speaker starts going off, especially with Google, the smart speaker will go off when you don't want it to. And it just starts, sorry, I didn't get that. If you would like to know more about this, and everyone's like, stop, hey, stop. Everybody I know who has a smart speaker has at least run into that situation once where the speaker keeps talking and they're like, hey, shut up, stop talking. It gets old. Does the Discord hoodie feel nice? Yeah, it's not bad. It's getting old. But the weather's been all over the place here. Like a couple of weeks ago, it was like 90 degrees and it was getting really hot, and I was wearing shorts and I was starting to sweat in here, and we were like, oh man, I think we got to turn on the AC. But then this week it's all down in the 40s and everything's getting really cold again. So I'm like pulling out we were starting to put away our winter clothes, which are, just jeans and sweatshirts and stuff. We don't live where it snows, but then it started coming cold, so we had to dig out all the winter clothes again. You need a new background. It's long overdue. You can just watch another channel because they'll have different backgrounds. But if you haven't noticed, I hope most people are here because they want to hear what I have to say. If you're just here to stare at a wall, I mean, that's even easier. I could have fun. Have fun staring at a wall. But Drew, it would be so much more fun if your wall was slightly grayer and had a different arrangement of apple boxes. And then we could look at that. Okay. We'll try that. I'll just get out of here and you can keep your staring going. Siri's just too dumb to justify HomePod. Siri forgets shortcuts all the time and it's extremely annoying. I have found all digital assistants annoying. I haven't used one that I felt like was really strong or great. The Google Assistant goes off all the time when it's not supposed to. I've been in here, and my wife's, like, working in the bedroom, and the kitchen speaker will go off. So the house is either haunted, or I feel like if you don't use a Google speaker long enough, then it'll turn up its sensitivity and just start going off and start saying things to remind the people in the house that, hey, you have a Google speaker and you should start using it. I don't That's a conspiracy theory of mine, but it's something that sounds like an action Google would take. Google would be the kind of company to be like, hey, this speaker's been plugged in, but it hasn't done anything in 3 days. Let's just start making it say crap. Because it feels like if we haven't used the speaker in a while, it'll just start saying, I I didn't get that. But did you know I'm capable? That was the more annoying thing, more recent history. Google just started, it's like, if it misses something, it will just start telling you, by the way, ask me to tell a joke. And we were like, shut up, please. How did you not die? I'm here for the redhead. I think he's the only one in the tech YouTube. Unfortunately, there's other redheads out there, even though I think there should only be one. CarPlay seems like the forgotten child of the iOS family. Yeah, that's a decent surprise. I could say I would be interested in at quadruple UDC because CarOS hasn't changed much. But I feel like it should, because especially with the rise of electric vehicles, there could be a lot more integration that Apple could start baking into CarPlay. The problem with it is it's so dependent on third-party automakers optimizing their displays and optimizing the car, because what I honestly think CarPlay needs, that I've noticed more, sorry if we're diving a little bit into the EV space, but electric vehicles struggle with supporting CarPlay because they often have to have these custom navigation systems to help route you to specific charge stations. So if you're on a road trip, maps, whether it's Google or Apple, whatever maps are built into the car is designed to estimate what your range is going to be and then tell you to stop at this charge station, and then say how long you need to charge for, and then because it's not always just 100%, with EVs, it's charge up to this rate and that'll get you to your next stop. And with a lot of battery stuff, it's like the last 80% is going to take way longer to charge than the first, the last 20% is going to take way longer than the first 80%. So building that kind of integration into CarPlay, where you can plug in what the range of the car is and maybe some more HVAC controls so that, you can tell Siri to turn on the heated seats, or adjust the climate control and that kind of thing. Just giving and having a range estimate, like letting the iPhone know what the watt hours per mile are, what the range of the battery pack is. If they gave CarPlay more of that type of functionality, I think it'd be really interesting. Your house probably does have ghosts. Google Assistant would respond to no one. The studio display center stage camera would adjust randomly. Coincidence? I think not. I guess that's it. That must be the only thing. It's the only explanation, yeah. People asking for Drew to change the background to me is the same as people asking for Apple to change the icons. Why? You'll be bored again after 15 minutes. Yeah, it's kind of that same way. I mean, I've changed the background several times in my channel's history, and I always get pretty much the exact same reaction, which is, oh, okay, that's kind of different, and I miss the old one. Go back. And other people saying, I would do it differently. You can't please everybody, as I've discovered. Everyone has their own vision of what the background of the tech videos should look like. And it will change throughout the year because we're planning trips and I'm going to be in different places. And I won't be in this room for several months out of this year. In fact, the beginning of the year, it was very different backgrounds. I was filming in different angles in here, and then we went to Puerto Rico, and I was filming there and had this beautiful view behind me that everyone thought was a green screen. So I mixed it up a bit, but there were a bunch of people when I was in Puerto Rico, and I had this gorgeous view and this beautiful scenery behind me. People were like, I miss the old background. They were like, I don't like this. I'm tired of you filming outside. You should go back to filming inside. So it's like, I could spend a lot of time, money, and energy trying to mix something up, but I'm probably only going to please like 20% of you. And then the other 80% is like, oh, I don't like this. And so, well, forget everybody. Just please. Yeah, so don't worry. Backgrounds will change in time, just as necessary. We need more cars with the car key feature. That would be nice, but it's kind of not up to Apple. I agree. I would like to see an AirPods Pro refresh. Yeah, Quo was said to expect that later in the year, so I'm not too keen on it getting updated at quadruple UDC, but yeah, we shouldn't roll it out. It's been over 2 years since the first AirPods Pro launched, and that's the first generation. AirPods Pro has never been updated. Doesn't that sound weird? Like, I think it's about time. Any macOS 13 name guesses? Ooh. It's got to be more California locations. I know I keep saying it, but I really want macOS weed. I think it would be funny. um, macOS weed. Please, Craig, you can do it. Oh, that's right. We're finally going to get some more Craig Federighi stage time. It's about dang time. I know Apple added EV charging to maps on iOS. I'm sure they could create a spec that allows manufacturers to input the car details. Matter of fact, how does EV charging work currently? Yeah, I've toyed around with it on Apple Maps. It's not super useful because all it basically lets you do is route to like a charger. It doesn't know what the state of charge of the car is and that kind of thing, which would be more useful, especially if Apple's pushing for all the carbon neutral stuff. Carbon neutral by 2030, I believe, and they've doubled the amount of renewable energy from their suppliers. So that news was going around everywhere today. So specifying making things easier for your EV Apple users out there, which I'm sure there's a lot. macOS Redwood, San Antonio, Silicon Valley. Oh, okay. San Antonio sounds like just vague enough to be real. Maybe Redwood would be good. Um, all you have to do is film against a green screen and upload each new video 10 times with each background you've ever had. Yeah, I've done green screens in the past. For one, they take up a lot of space, and it's very ugly when you're not um, actually keying out the green screen. And second of all, even when someone does a green screen well, it still looks like a green screen, and everyone's like, "Hell, that's a green screen," and it has a very specific look to it that's very weatherman. Over here we have the clouds moving. I don't care too much for the look, and I also think people obsess over backgrounds too much. Um, let's see. He does. What is Mark saying? He does look fit. Do you for real not work out? Very sussy. No, I've done some workouts. Just I don't go to a gym. I've done some mountain biking, but that's about it. macOS Disneyland. I'm sure the shareholders over at Disney would love that one. There's probably a Redwood in Washington, but yeah. macOS headquarters of Microsoft. From someone who works at the Fruity store, I wish they closed the store during launch keynotes. I've never been to an Apple store during a launch keynote, although I've heard they don't they like have the event playing on the big screen? It's probably really confusing or hilarious. Like I haven't thought about that much, but like aren't there people buying iPhones at the Apple store as the new iPhone is being unveiled? Can you imagine if you were at the Apple store and you were like, "Yeah, I need a new phone. My old one broke or the battery's not very good." And they're like, "Okay, you should buy this one." And you look over and they're unveiling the iPhone 14 or 15 or it's right there. And they're like, "Look at all these new camera features." And you're like, "Huh. Oh, what what's that one?" And they're like, "Oh, that one just came out." You're like, "Oh, okay. That's cool. Can I get one of those?" "Oh, that won't be available until later." "Oh, when do pre-orders start?" "I don't know. We haven't gotten to that part of the keynote yet. We'll find out how much it costs in a couple minutes, and then you can pre-order it a week from Friday, and then it'll show up a week after that." And then they're like, "Huh, okay, so I probably shouldn't buy this one, huh?" Yeah, it's been like such an awkward, weird conversation. Um, Drew benched his studio display every day before he returned it. I've actually been going to a lot of meetups and gatherings and stuff, so there's been a lot of food I've been eating, and I'm worried that I'm over my calorie limit, so I'm trying to be careful. But yeah, they don't play it at mine. Yeah, well, I've been to like my closest Apple store doesn't have a big screen. They don't have like a big display that they could play it on. I guess they could play it on a TV or something. It'd probably be surprising if no one brought it up on at least like an iMac in the store. But yeah, um, What game are you currently playing? I don't really play much, to be honest. I'm sorry. macOS Eureka, that would be good. Is there a good picture? How about I'm trying to think of like they'll pick the destination based on a really cool wallpaper they can include with macOS. Is there a cool picture of Eureka they could do? Um, no, let's do Death Valley. How about that one? That's a cool California location. macOS Death Valley because there's no updates here, and it's really really hot. Now that would have been good for the Intel era, huh? If they were they were still selling Intel Macs, they could have done Death Valley because it's at record temperatures. Um, bring back Aperture. I'd really love to see a real world wallpaper for macOS 13 instead of an animated one. It's okay because there's that I'm blanking on their name, but there's that one group that goes out and takes pictures of the macOS wallpapers every year. So they made one for Monterey, and I think it's still my wallpaper, or I set it as my wallpaper at some point. Um, yeah, that is kind of Mojave. macOS Golden Gate sounds decently cool. San Francisco could work. Cupertino, that'd be a little bit on the nose, wouldn't it? Fort Bragg. Ooh, there's a good one. macOS Mendocino. That's a good. I mean, maybe not as photogenic as Monterey, but that's true. macOS Mammoth is a trademark they have renewed several times but haven't used yet. macOS Skyline, Redcap, and Redwood are three others that they have shown heavy interest in. So I'm gonna guess Redwood. I think they could probably take a really cool picture with macro mode of a redwood tree or something like that. Um, I think there's potential that could work. How much is the membership again? It's $2 a month, and you get to watch me film and edit these tech videos in real time, and you get updates on upcoming videos. So yeah, that'd be cool. macOS Ventura. Oh, Ben, thank you for the super chat. He says, I would love Mount Rushmore as a macOS. It's not quite in California, but yeah, who cares? Thank you for the super chat. That was nice of you. Mount Rushmore. I don't know if they want the president's faces on every single one. Ventura. Oasis. Crater Lake. Oh my god. Look at the chat. It's just filled up with California names. Does it have to be scenic? How about cities? I guess cities suck. Yeah, I don't know how macOS Sacramento rolls off the tongue, or I don't know. Monterey was the first one where that crew didn't have a reference photo to recreate. They had to take a picture of the most likely landmark Apple would have chosen. Yeah, and I thought it was cool. It's like you leave it open for the community to match it, which I think is fun. It's like let the people decide. So it's impossible to predict, but yeah, it's probably safe to go off of things they have trademarks for. So I don't know what Mammoth comes from. Is there a California location called Mammoth? I don't know. Um, I'm going to tip you $500 on Super Chat. Wow, that's incredibly generous of you. Thank you. Um, there's so many, there's so many names in the chat now. Oh my god. There has to be at least a decent portion of this event that's probably going to be dedicated just to services, though, right? Like, there's no way around that. We have to watch. Oh, there you go. E-uploads. macOS Hollywood. Every new feature is about TV Plus. It's just going to be a bunch of Apple TV Plus trailers over and over and over again. And that's what macOS is. They really try to shove the Apple TV app down your throat in macOS. Like, when I was reviewing the Mac Studio, you can't just like export a video and have it play in QuickTime anymore. Now it wants to default to the Apple TV app. I don't know what the Apple TV app is so much better at than QuickTime, but they really want you to play everything through that. I prefer QuickTime. It's just more simple, and it's not trying to get me to buy anything. Get ready, everybody, for QuickTime Plus. There's a new subscription service in town. Oh yeah, Mammoth Lake. That's right. I forgot about that. Do you think the Apple Silicon Macs will age better? My 2019 MacBook Pro hasn't. It's gotten much slower, and the battery is terrible. I don't know what they can do much with the battery. That's just dependent on cycle life and how often it's at 100% versus how often it goes down to 0. There's a lot of variables that dictate battery health. I don't know the exact spec of the one you got, when you got it in 2019, how you've charged it. But I assume Apple Silicon will age better in the same way that iPads have aged pretty dang well. And they've always been powered by Apple Silicon. And because Apple's designing the architecture themselves, keeping them up to date and keeping the OS fresh and giving it new features should be at least easier than updating the old Intel Macs, because the sockets changed and the architecture's changed, and it's all based on what Intel is doing that particular year, whereas ARM is a bit more streamlined and across the board. Um, every video I've played went through QuickTime. Yeah, by default on Monterey or something, it wants to keep opening it through the Apple TV app. Um, when they get bored of California places, they should just do human names. macOS Fred, Susan. That would really roll off the tongue. I can't wait to get macOS Fred. Can't you? QuickTime Pro actually used to be a real application you had to pay for. Really? Oh my god, I'm glad I wasn't alive for that. Or at least aware of it. Ugh. Do you have any build quality issues with your 13 Pro Max? I noticed a piece of dust that I think is stuck inside the camera lens. I haven't had that specific issue, but I do get little particulates sometimes, or dust stored at the very, very top of the front where the glass meets the steel, but it's usually pretty easy to clean out. But nothing major. You know, that's kind of the stuff you expect. Nothing like the glass fell off or something gets stuck in the camera lens. But I've been pretty hard on my phone because I don't have a case, and I've swam with it in the Caribbean Ocean and taken it down in salt water like 15, 20 feet. And the speaker rattled a little bit, and then I washed it out with more salt water, and it seemed to fix itself, so now it works fine. But yeah, for the most part, build quality, reliability, the display still is fantastic. The battery's been great. Nothing's fallen off. So I've been very happy with it. Why does macOS have the cool names but not for iOS? Yeah, that's another good question. How long is Apple going to keep the number scheme going with iOS? They've been at this for a while, and we're coming up on 16. And the biggest changes Mark Gurman's talked about is notification redesign, because I guess there's still a lot of people unhappy with iOS notifications. I don't really grasp it. I've been asking for specifics, and I can't really get many from Android fans, but I guess Android just does notifications way better. I don't think it's honestly a difference of iOS is bad at notifications, Android is good. I think they just have different approaches, because every time I set up an Android phone, the notifications are like the most frustrating part. They are on by default, and there's just a crap ton of apps that send you pointless notifications, and I keep dismissing them, and the weather app wants to ping me, it's going to be 65 degrees in a couple hours. It's like, I'll check the weather if I want to know about the weather. You don't need to send me push notifications about that. Why not macOS Hyena? Hey, there's a it all comes full circle. Perfect. When they run out of numbers, of course. Yeah. They'll stop when they run out of numbers. Let's see. They secretly hate the iPhone. Can't you tell? Minor upgrades every year, price hikes, but it rakes in the dough, so what can they do? I think Apple views the iPhone as this life raft. I mean, it's a life raft that kind of has turned into a cruise ship, of course. But I think similar to what Steve Jobs described Apple as, the iPhone is like a boat, maybe not a cruise ship. Let's say the iPhone's like a yacht, because Apple's made a ton of money on this thing, and it's been super profitable for them, and it's grown their market cap, and it's basically, there's other things that have done well at Apple, but the iPhone is the most successful thing they've ever made. And they, right now, are constantly trying to figure out how to get off this boat, because the boat has a leak, and his name is Ross Young. No, but there's like water coming into the boat slowly, because they know the iPhone gravy train is not going to last forever. Like, after a certain number of upgrades, it gets harder and harder for the iPhone to be considered a big upgrade, and not everybody's going to want to buy the new one. And every year the people hold on to their iPhones more and more. The average length of ownership used to be 2 years, and then it stretched to 3, and then it stretched to 4. And at this point, with how fast and how capable iPhones are getting, I wouldn't be shocked if some of the newer iPhones being bought today are going to be held on to for 5, 6 years, because they're just going to age so well. The battery's good, display's good, camera's good. And the new iPhones coming out after the 13 are just so minor updates, and honestly, there's probably reasons to not upgrade. Like, people don't like the eye hole, or if Apple ends up going portless, people are going to be like, well, I'm not going portless. That sounds stupid. So, Apple's struggling to find reasons to get people to upgrade, which is why they're trying to diversify their business model. And okay, we have a bunch of people using iPhones and iPads, and they're holding on to them, but how do we get money in the meantime with recurring payments and memberships? And that's why they're pushing services so hard. I don't. Apple doesn't disclose exactly how much they're making from each individual service. They just have kind of a services revenue tab in their reports. So they have to bunch in the App Store and uh, Apple Music and Apple Care and iCloud. So it's possible that a handful of the services that have existed for a long time are still doing really, really well, but perhaps all of the new services, whether it be TV Plus, Arcade, Fitness Plus, and News Plus, all of those could be flopping. In fact, that's my theory. I don't think they're selling all that well. I don't think very many people are subscribing to them. And Apple's just trying to pivot as best they can because they know there's not going to be that many new iPhone upgrades in the future, and people are going to start holding on to their hardware longer and longer, which is another great reason to switch into the hardware subscriptions model. It just makes too much sense for them. Uh, let's see. I just want Safari to get as good as Chrome is. What's the big difference? Because I use both. YouTube doesn't make it easy to manage multiple channels within a single browser. Because if you switch a YouTube account in one browser, then in a different tab, if you're in a different account, it'll break and it won't work. So basically, because I manage multiple YouTube channels, it's easier for me to just have multiple browsers usually open at the same time, and I have one channel logged in on one browser and a different channel logged in on a different browser, back and forth between Safari and Chrome all the time. And Safari usually feels faster, or at least just more built into the OS because it's made by Apple and it just feels more fluid, whereas Chrome, of course, is built by Google. It's more RAM intensive, and I don't know. They just the options they offer. Picture in picture is harder with Chrome. Saving images to download feels harder with Chrome, whereas Safari has a quicker tab that sends it right to downloads and that kind of thing. So I would like to know what specifically you want Safari to do differently to make it more like Chrome. I think it's more a personal preference thing than anything. Everybody's just like, I'm used to Chrome, so I always use Chrome, and other people are like, I'm used to Safari. I always use Safari. Oh, my channel super chatted. That's the name, my channel. Thank you very much. He says, still using my 6S, but definitely going to upgrade to 14, as I'm pretty sure iOS 16 isn't coming to the 6S. Yeah, that's the current running rumor, so probably a good prediction. Apple surprised us in the past. I was honestly really shocked that iOS 15 was on the 6S, but yeah, at this point, that phone has gotten so many years of support. When did that come out again? I think it was 2015. So, wow. It's 2022, and they're probably still going to send out a few more iOS 15 updates before 16 drops. So the iPhone 6S got 7 years of software support. This guy who just super chatted still has the headphone jack. Oh my god. My old nemesis. I thought that thing was gone. The most popular subscription from Apple is Apple Music. I think it's probably a toss-up between iCloud and Apple Music because it's so hard to not have an iCloud subscription these days and just use your phone normally, whereas there's a lot of people that live without Apple Music. Marngel says, Safari is mostly fine for me. I only use Chrome because some websites work better than in Safari, which is something that Apple can't really control. That's another good point. If it's something that's just... There's a lot of features that I have to do through Chrome simply because Google hasn't brought those features to Safari. Like when I collabed with the Man About Tech, he invited me on his channel. He sent me a link from StreamYard, and when I opened it in Safari, it was like, sorry, we don't support Safari. You have to do this through Chrome. So it's like, there's just third-party features that they optimize for Chrome sometimes. But Sam Neal says, as a developer, the one giant thing I need desperately is with the new top color thing, allow us to set the color but make it different to the color that comes up in embeds. It's infuriating. That's a giant thing, really? The color of the menu bar? I what's a small thing if that's a big thing? That's my question. Safari has terrible extension support. Their web app support on iOS is so bad they don't even support background audio play. Oh, I thought we were referring to Safari on Mac. Are you talking about Safari on iOS now? Um, they did it years ago to get all their Mac software to 10, going from Final Cut 7 to Final Cut 10, QuickTime 7 to QuickTime 10. Oh, geez. My goodness. I only use Chrome when Safari isn't allowed by whatever app. That's fair. That's probably me too. The thinnest iPhone ever, right? The one with the headphone jack. I think the iPhone 6 was just a tiny bit thinner than the 6S. If my memory serves me correctly, I think that Apple was really worried about all the bend gate complaints because, Unbox Therapy did the bending iPhone video and everyone freaked out and panicked and the stock tumbled and, it was this big story that the iPhone 6 could bend and essentially they beefed up the aluminum on the 6S in that somewhat fixed the problem, but not entirely. But because they added 3D touch with the 6S as well, which I think added another layer to the display, and the aluminum was a bit more beefy. I think it was just slightly thicker, but it was very slight. It was not huge. I'm still using T-Mobile Home Internet. Yes, if I don't say anything otherwise, then yeah, it hasn't changed. I'm wondering if I should take down my Starlink dish. It's still on the roof though. It's not plugged in or anything, and we canceled the service. We're not paying for it anymore, but it's still sitting up there. I hope it's okay. Well, it's designed for that, I guess, whether we were paying for it or not. I guess my concern is like whether you pay for it or not, it's meant to be outside and on a roof for like, years at a time. Uh, but is by me not having it plugged in, could that damage it? Is it supposed to like heat up itself and protect it in the cold or something? I don't know. Maybe I should leave it plugged in. Will it maintain itself if you cancel your subscription, or will it just do nothing? Maybe we should find that out. What Apple products do you think you'll buy and keep this year? There's not a ton, to be honest. I mean, I blew a lot of my money last year. I got a stainless steel 45 millimeter Apple Watch. I got the 256 gig Pro Max iPhone, and I got an 8 terabyte 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. So I kind of blew a bunch of money last year intentionally because I was like, these are everything I bought last year was because I intended to keep it for more than 1 year. And essentially everything that Apple has made that I'm interested in, I've purchased. There's not anything rumored to come out that I'm terribly interested in. Maybe the monitor, if it's priced right and has 120 hertz. I don't think it's likely, but if it's possible, I'll wait for that. Probably next on my list is like new AirPods because I've had my AirPods Pro since launch day. I got those the very first day any pair of AirPods Pro came out. I remember that unboxing. It was right here, but it was back in 2019. Man, there's a lot of the world has changed since then, and the battery life on them is just not that great. And my current AirPods Pro are fine, like they get the job done, but because I've owned them for so long, I'm convinced something's gonna go bad soon in the next couple months. Like one of them's gonna get quieter than the other. The battery health is likely deteriorated quite a bit already. So if not AirPods Pro, maybe I'd look at a used pair or renewed pair refurbished AirPods Max, just because I know the battery life on those would be so good. And I like the design, I like the comfort, and I like the sound quality. I just don't like the charging method and the case and the price, which is why I would go used. I would definitely not pay $550 for AirPods Max, but my friend Randy just picked up a pair for under $400 that he found renewed, and he said they feel brand new. I might end up doing something like that if the new AirPods Pro are somewhat disappointing, but my main wish for new AirPods Pro is that they would address battery life because already on day one, AirPods Pro had the worst battery life of any pair of AirPods, and they still do, for the record. AirPods 3 can last 6 hours per bud, AirPods 2 can last 5 hours per bud, and even longer with the charge case. And then the next problem is AirPods Pro, day one, start with 4.5 hours. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Ben. I'll read that in a second. But as time goes on, if you've used AirPods Pro for several years, the battery health deteriorates, and now you're starting with more like 3 hours when they first go in, which is not great. So if they can address battery life and maybe give us 5.5, 6 hours of battery life, that would be absolutely worth upgrading for, because I would use the crap out of it. And Mac Pro, no, I have no intention on upgrading to the Mac Pro. Already it sounds like, have you guys seen the Max Tech video on the M1 Ultra and the limitations of Apple Silicon and how they can't really take advantage of their GPU cores and stuff? So I'm already plenty happy with the MacBook Pro M1 Max performance. I don't need anything faster than that right now, at least, specifically because I plan on taking trips and I want to work away from home, so I need a laptop. If I bought some crazy expensive Mac Pro, it would just sit here and I would probably get the same amount of work done. Okay, Ben says, the way you feel about the iPhone and not upgrading, that's how I'm feeling about the Mac Studio. I'm holding on to that sucker for a while. That's good. You should. Desktops, in particular, age much, much better than laptops, because you got no battery to worry about and it's non-mobile. So because it's not moving around too much, it's less likely for parts and stuff to wear out. It's just going to be planted on a desk, sitting there, hopefully keeping the processor cool. And I'm sure, I think you got the M1 Max version, Ben. But anyway, thank you for the super chat. M1 Max, I think, is plenty processing power for most people these days. I am not most people, because I'm editing and uploading multiple 4K at 60 videos a day, usually. And the M1 Max is plenty fast at that, so I can't imagine that many people that need it to be even faster unless you're in a very specific use case. So, yeah, that's my recommendation with the Mac Studio. Don't bother with the Ultra. It's not worth the extra money, especially based on more recent reviews of how Final Cut and, Pro applications have performed on the M1 Ultra. It's not quite, twice the performance of the M1 Max chip, even though it's two M1 Maxes stitched together, which is kind of a disappointment. But not immensely. The only reason it's a disappointment is because all the other chips have been so good. Like, I knew that Apple was working on, a beefed up version of the M1 chip. I just didn't expect it to be that much faster. So the M1 was incredible, and honestly, the M1 chip is plenty fast for a lot of people. And then the M1 Pro and M1 Max were even more amazing, and we kept having our expectations either met or exceeded. We were like, oh my god, this is even faster than we thought. This is even more power efficient than we thought. And then the M1 Ultra was kind of the first new Apple Silicon chip that didn't quite deliver on those high expectations. So it's meh. It's pretty good, but not as great as the other chips. We got our hopes too high probably for it. It's good to hold on to your tech for as long as you can. Great for your wallet and the environment. Absolutely, yeah. And I think Mac Studio is going to be one of those Macs that ages pretty dang well. You've got a lot of overhead. You got lots of ports. You can use it with whatever monitor you want. So if a newer monitor comes out in the future and you're like, that looks cool, I want to upgrade to that, you can still use it with the Mac Studio. It's got front-facing ports, which is like super rare. Apple never does that with Macs in any recent history. So yeah, it's got a ton of selections. That's going to age really well, I think. Mine are still good. Had issues earlier with connecting to charge and clicking noises. Yeah, the AirPods Max I bought for review, not last year, right? That was 2020. Yeah, back in 2020, my AirPods Max had a noise canceling problem, or not even noise canceling. It was just anytime I had them on, they would make this rattling sound on the right cuff. And whether I was listening to music, transparency mode, noise canceling, no matter what, it was making this, just crackling. It was annoying. So I was like, okay, even if I liked these things, I wouldn't be keeping them. So I sent them back. I feel Apple can make another Microsoft copied Apple moment at WWDC with Windows copying a lot of Mac. I don't think they want to acknowledge the competition. They'll just pretend they don't exist. You see the guy that 3D printed a mount to use the iPad mini as a screen to make the M1 Mac mini a sort of laptop? Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I saw that video being sent around. It's kind of interesting. It's just like, get a MacBook Air. It's the idea that I want all the processing power of the Mac mini, but on the go. Okay, you know what? They make a computer for that. It's like not that special of a chip. And It's a cool, fun project, but I don't know. I wouldn't use it. I would just get a MacBook Air. Anyway, thank you for the super chat, Karen. She says, "Do you think we will get Final Cut Pro on iPad at WWDC?" Um, I did that so you don't say dub dub. Got it. That was a good move. No, probably not. Just based on the rumors we're hearing from Gurman, I have a big wish list for iPadOS 16, and I have all these hopes of how they could address the software and make it better. And I've been disappointed so many times. I'm acknowledging what I want, and I've come to terms with, yes, I feel like even better than Apple sometimes, I know what the iPad needs, and I know what would bring in more revenue, and I know what wouldn't cannibalize sales. And I feel like I know what they could do, and I've just somewhat started to accept, I just don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to leave the iPad in its little playground, and they're not going to let it graduate middle school, and they're holding it back, keeping it in the younger kids class, even though it's, strong enough to play in the big leagues. And what Mark Gurman said is what's on the plate for iPadOS 16 is some different multitasking menus. That's it. The multitasking launcher. And notifications will be a bit different. And Apple wants to expand on focus modes and give more control to those. Last stream, I think I went off on my tangent about focus modes. It's like, and I was looking in the community forums too on 9 to 5 Mac. There's a lot of people that feel the same way as I do with focus modes. It's like there's not a lot of variety in who I want notifications from and what apps I want on my home screen. It's usually like, I mean, if I'm at work, I'll open those apps. If I'm not at work, I won't open them. I don't need them to like disappear if I'm not at work, because I don't know, I don't have the self-control. But at the same time, you can just change focus modes if you're worried about not having the self-control. And most of the time it's like, if I'm live streaming, then yeah, I'll turn on do not disturb because I don't want notifications from anybody. But if I'm not live streaming, then anybody who has my phone number, I'm comfortable with them texting me. Or I'll just, if there's a group chat or something that's very active and I'm not wanting to get notified from it, I'll just turn on do not disturb for that one group chat. I don't need like an entire focus mode just for that alone. So some people have found use for it. I'm happy for you if you have. I've run into people online that are like, oh yeah, no, it's great. I love it. So congratulations. iOS 16 sounds like it'll have more control with focus modes. I don't know what that means, but if we want it on iPadOS, it won't happen. Pretty much exactly. That's where my expectations are at this point. The biggest problem likely with putting Final Cut on iPad is that Apple still wants this emphasis of touch to be the dominant form of input with the iPad. Even though they advertise it with a keyboard and trackpad, and you can connect a Magic Mouse or a Magic Trackpad and use it like a Mac and not touch this display, they still want all applications to work solely off of touch, no matter what. And if you brought Final Cut to the iPad, it would have to be fundamentally rewritten to be touch capable, in which case it would probably act a lot like iMovie does now. The biggest difference in the case of video editing is that with a touch display like LumaFusion or iMovie, the time head is fixed. And with a touch interface, you can scroll through the timeline, but that time head stays in one place. Whereas with a keyboard and mouse input with Final Cut on the Mac, you can scroll through the timeline, but the time head can move, and you can constantly change it and go back real quick and click back here and then scroll over here. So there's just, it's hard to describe, but it's basically just a lot more flexibility with how the timeline is laid out and how quickly you can edit things with a keyboard and mouse user interface. So the iPad can support keyboard and mouse, but I haven't seen a video editing app go all in like Final Cut is on the Mac and let you move around the time head and let you having more click and drag support and, infinite layers of audio and video on top of each other. So will Apple cave and just start saying, okay, you can make applications on the iPad that require a keyboard and mouse. Eh, it's as much as I want it. I'm just trying to accept it probably won't happen. Um, don't forget jumbling everything around, so we have to relearn everything again. Right, right, exactly. Um, that guy who made the portable Mac Mini made it portable because he doesn't have an M1 MacBook and doesn't want to spend more money to buy one. Yeah, but what did he buy? Didn't he buy a Mac Mini and an iPad Air? Isn't aren't those things put together more expensive? I feel like an M1 MacBook would have costed less, especially if you bought certified refurbished. It would have been like $850, and Mac Mini plus iPad is gonna be more like $1,200 plus your time, and you gotta find a battery and power situation, and then supply the keyboard and mouse. I don't see that as being a cheaper solution. It's fun, it's cool, but it's not super practical in my opinion. Unless I'm missing something. Oh, thank you. We got another super chat from Karen. She says, "Will new MacBook Air be at least as light as 12-inch MacBook?" I feel like it should be because the rumored redesign is supposed to be even thinner and lighter than the current MacBook Air, and I assume there's been talk that it would have a mini LED panel. I don't know if that's still up for debate, but if it is a redesign, why not give it thin bezels? Give it the same thickness of bezels on the new MacBook Pros. So if you can put a 13-inch design with thin bezels, you're going to be really close to the same size as the 12-inch MacBook from 2015. So yeah, I would hope so about that light. Um, the one thing I like about focus mode is that it will change on all devices at once. That's the one thing I don't like about it. I just turn that off because there's been a lot of times, at least in my workflow, where I've been like, I want this device on Do Not Disturb, but I don't want all devices. So I'm glad that's an option. You can turn it off. But iPod on iOS 16. Probably weird. You think it'll be supported with that 4-inch screen? I would love it if it wasn't. Let me put it that way. I would be so incredibly happy if they killed it off and just stopped selling it this year. Oh, yes. As much as you guys may troll in the comments about an iPod Classic making a comeback, I still smile and I will sleep incredibly well the night they kill the iPod because it doesn't need to exist. Why you're so skinny now? I don't know what's happening. I think I'm deflating slowly. His wording was very vague. Redesign multitasking could mean anything from a small UI update to proper multi-display support. Usually, if it's up for debate, it's the more boring one. So I'm going to say, don't assume that means multi-display support. Assume it means slightly different launcher. Is reasoning that laptops were just clunky and he didn't like them, so he made the iPad Mini and M1 Mac Mini combo? Yeah, I'm sure it's creative, but wait, you're saying laptops are clunky? What? The iPad Mini. Oh, so we got the Mini. $500 plus the Mac Mini is $600. Yeah, no, that's still not cheaper than a MacBook. And I guarantee you, if you try to take the Mac Mini anywhere, that is far more clunky than a MacBook. Because it's like this thick. The MacBook Air is like this thick. And the battery's built in, whereas the Mac Mini doesn't have its own battery, so it's very creative. I just don't understand the logic of how that would be better than a MacBook Air. Rip iPod. He already had the Mac Mini and iPad Mini. He didn't make it as a replacement for everyone. Okay, I get it. I get it. It was cool for him, and I'm happy for him. I'm just saying I wouldn't recommend anybody else do that. If you're like in the market, yeah, you could spend that much money on just a Mac and achieve the same thing. Excuse me. What band did I get with my Series 7? I thought I had it somewhere. Where is it in the box? No, I can't find it. I never took it out of the box. But basically, I was in a rush when the Series 7 launch page went up. Is it that one? I can't tell what I'm looking at. No, it's not that one. I have a lot of Apple boxes in here. But basically, I had to buy it quick, and they didn't have the graphite 45 millimeter Apple Watch with the watch band I wanted. If I tried to select it, I wanted just like a black sport loop or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but I don't like the two-tone watch bands with like multiple colors on them. And they didn't have any watch bands in stock for this watch I was interested in. So I had to buy it with this dual tone. It was like dark olive and blue or something. And I never took it out of the box, though I still have it. And I just don't, I don't want to wear it because it doesn't look good to me. So there's actually multiple. I think the watch band that came with my Series 6 is still in the box because it was also like a red sport loop with like an extra couple of colors. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. I'll I'll check it in a second. But yeah, it was kind of stressful because I was like, oh come on, like which band do I have to get in order to order this watch? They didn't have all of them in stock, so yeah. Now I have two watch bands that have just stayed in the box, and I'll probably just wait for a birthday gift or a Christmas gift or something for someone and give them away, or I'll sell them, or yeah, whatever. I'll find it. No, if I send it to you, I have to put a return address, and then people can dox me. So sorry. No giveaways. Very strict Tailosive policy. We're not doing giveaways. Done them in the past, and they just attract people for the wrong reasons. Sorry. There's enough giveaways going on online. Thank you for the super chat, Karen. She says, I know you don't want to spam us with merch and you don't want it to become primary income, but maybe you can have limited edition 1 week availability merch one final time. I never bought, but I want it. Um, I guess in a way, I had limited edition merch. It's just you missed it. That's the whole point. I had a limited edition merch sale for 3 years, and now the offer's gone. So that's all merch on the Tailosive merch page was limited edition because it's all gone. If I brought it back, it wouldn't be limited edition, right? No giveaways equals fewer views. It means fewer people asking for free things in the comments, which I'm fine with, because there's a bunch of people, whenever I did giveaways, that would show up and not be interested in the subject at hand, not be interested in the topics. They would just want more free stuff. And they would just say, gimme, 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 gimme. And I'd say, well, let's talk about something else. And they go, I don't want to talk about that. Just give me stuff. And I'm like, that's not what I want in my comment section. No, thank you. It's so limited, only Drew has it. Oh, I gave away most of my Tailosive merch. I don't really have much of any anymore. Uh, Tell you what, if I'm on a trip sometime and I show myself in an area that you're close by to, just tag me and say, hey, do you want to do a meetup? And maybe if I do a meetup with one of you someday, I'll just bring some Tailosive merch along and throw it out. Or I'll leave it at an Apple store. That'd be kind of funny. If I like go to an Apple store and like just leave my Tailosive merch on a table and then just walk out, and then I'll tweet about it. Like free merch at the Apple store, go pick it up. How often do you clean your MacBook screen? You're supposed to clean your MacBook screen? Oh god. So yeah, it's not very clean. Although I did just clean my car windshield this morning because we got new windshield wipers a few months ago, and then it stopped raining, so I never replaced them. And there's a lot of bugs and crap on my windshield, and it looked really bad, and the windshield wipers didn't work very well. But this morning we had to go somewhere, and it was raining, and I was like, okay, now's probably a good time to switch to the new windshield wipers. So I had to. It hurt my fingers. Like these clips and plastic and stuff is really like hard to pry open and clip into place. But I finally did it. It's the first time I've ever replaced windshield wipers on my car. Doesn't happen very often, but yeah, that's what I cleaned today, but not the MacBook display. Let's see. It would be so nice if Apple gave macOS the option to do iCloud backups like on iOS. Oh yeah, that's true. They don't support that, do they? I guess Macs probably are known for having a lot more storage. Therefore, the fact that I have an 8 terabyte MacBook Pro and Apple doesn't even have an 8 terabyte iCloud plan, yeah, I guess that would maybe be problematic. But yeah, why not? Especially for MacBooks that are lower storage. If you have like a 256 gig Mac or I don't know. At the same time, like, doesn't Apple want you to fill up your iCloud storage? Because then you'll pay for more. Like, isn't that a good one? Um, Oh, we got another super chat here from Garrett. Thank you. You didn't understand me. I said I want to make a different design merch one final time so that I get a chance to buy it. Come on, man. I want you to make a different design. I'm sorry. I've closed the store. I've closed the page. It would be kind of just a waste of time, unfortunately. But oh, your mail. Okay, gotcha. The perks of being a channel is better. A channel member is better than merch in my opinion because at least I use the perks. Yeah, and it's likely a lot cheaper. The merch is just like I don't know. Check out MKBHD merch. That's who I'm gonna promote every time you ask because his merch looks way cooler than mine. And I can't design interesting things. I can barely design new channel artwork. I can barely design new channel artwork, let alone good merch designs. Um, does the stainless steel Apple Watch have stronger glass than the aluminum versions? Yes, it is sapphire infused. I used to keep calling it sapphire glass, and everyone kept saying, it's not pure sapphire. Jerry Rig Everything did a durability test, and he said, okay, I get it. There's, it's not pure sapphire, but regardless, from personal experience, I can very much attest that when you buy a stainless steel Apple Watch or a higher tier, like the titanium and the ceramic, those glass panes they use are far more durable. I don't care if it's pure sapphire or not, but they will look flawless after years and years and years of abuse. My wife still has a stainless steel Series 3. It's got the ugly bezels and everything, but there's not a single scratch, not a single chip on that glass. It can still break if you like drop it, but for just like general like scraping, scratching. The reason they don't use sapphire infused glass on iPhones is because iPhones are more prone to drops. So when you make a harder piece of glass that's less flexible, the benefit is that it's not as likely to scratch and scuff over time, but it's more prone to shattering. So if you drop an iPhone with sapphire infused glass, it's a lot more likely to shatter, but it won't get as many scratches and little scuffs over time. So that's why iPhone glass is less durable than my Apple Watch glass. But the entry level Apple Watches with the aluminum chassis, they have the same kind of glass that your iPhone has, which means that it's resistant to shatters, but it's more prone to scratch. And because iPhones are more likely to drop and Apple Watches are something you wear, you don't hold, so Apple Watches are less likely to drop, they're okay doing sapphire glass on them just because Apple Watches are more prone to scraping, like getting hit on a door frame or hitting a rock, or when you're swimming and scraping it against concrete. Those are the types of things that the Apple Watch faces. So on the higher end watches, they do infuse sapphire, which is more expensive, but uh, it definitely makes the build quality last a lot better, in my opinion. Um, yeah, Ben Rayner super chatted. Thank you. He says, "Give me free stuff." Sounds like John Ralphio's sister from Parks and Rec. Yeah, money, please. Right. Parks and Rec is a great show. Buy the MKBHD candle. Yeah, there you go. He's got way better stuff than me. Anything I come up with is gonna look like crap. Let's see. Are we getting titanium Mac and or iPhone? I really wish we would. The problem is titanium is just inherently more expensive. The only phone I can think of in recent history was the Essential phone, but that didn't do well. And I have a feeling it was because the profit margins of the Essential phone were not very good. And it was already kind of an expensive phone for the specs it was offering. So the price would have to go up. There's just no way around it. Apple would eat into way too much of their profit margins to make a titanium iPhone. I know there was talk about that. There were people claiming that iPhones would go titanium, but it's not impossible. It's just the price would have to go up. There's no way they could keep the prices the same. And I also have the feeling, based on how Apple markets iPhones, I get the impression that they really like the way the Pros have this glossy mirror finish around the chassis. And the regular iPhone 13s do not have that. They're aluminum and they're matte. Personally, I think the aluminum matte texture looks better, but and feels better. But for some reason, Apple's decided, marketing-wise, that the glossy steel gives a more pro, luxurious kind of jewelry look to it. It's meant to look, like gold. When you get that gold stainless steel, it's all reflective and shiny, and that, I guess, just screams more high price. Whereas if you went titanium, it would look pretty dang close to the aluminum model. It honestly wouldn't be that different. It would, on the website they make the titanium Apple Watches have this like brushed texture, and it's it doesn't really look like that in person. When I got the titanium Series 5, I thought it looked insanely similar to the aluminum Apple Watches, which is not a bad look. It's just like it's a lot of money for something that's not drastically different. At least with the Apple Watch, you were getting the sapphire infused glass and the matte finish. But with a titanium iPhone, I think it would just look a little bit too similar. Essential phone was not essential, correct? Apple markets their camera lens cover as sapphire, even though it isn't, which is what Jerry Rig Everything always points during his durability tests. It's like sapphire infused. It doesn't mean pure sapphire. I actually think pure sapphire would be more prone to shattering, which is not exactly a good thing. But yeah, they always do marketing jargon like that. For the same reason McDonald's always shows their sodas with a glass, although you can never get a glass at McDonald's. You have to get it in a paper cup. It's just like how Burger King commercials show those burgers. They never look like that in the real thing. It's kind of an exaggeration. Yes, it's like, this is a sapphire lens. It's like, yeah, there's sapphire in it, but it's not pure sapphire, but it's marketing. You can't take everything literally. Okay, Karen Super Chatted, can you please put one shirt that you have lying around on eBay auction? It would give me a chance. I don't even have an eBay account, but I'll try to find one lying around and sell it for $300,000 or something. We're having the last piece of Tailosive merch. I gotta find one though. But I appreciate all the super chats regardless. Is it true Apple is making a 15 mini with USB-C and 120 hertz? I need it to be true. I'm so ready to upgrade from my crack. No, I don't know where you heard that, Ben. But I'm sorry, Ben. It's not happening. Is it worth starting to learn iOS development today? Heck yeah, if you're interested in that. There's a lot of companies hiring iOS developers all the time. So I don't know that much about the field because I haven't done it myself. But I just know that if you know how to write software, there is a very large and present industry willing to hire you. Let's see. I feel like the reason Mac doesn't do iCloud backup is because the Documents, Desktop, and Downloads folder are already in iCloud. Well, they can be, yeah. Apple already wants your photos and music in iCloud, and the only thing it backs up on iOS is applications from the App Store. I suppose so. I guess they got a lot of iCloud features baked in, which is true. But yeah, if it's a factory reset from a backup, I don't see why not. If it's a smaller file size Mac, obviously it would be stupid to try to back up a Mac with 4 terabytes of data on it. But there's more makeup on fast food commercials than on some people. Oh yeah, they have all kinds of marketing tricks in the fast food industry. I want a brushed stainless steel edge plus matte glass back, including camera bump. iPhone Pro would be the best feeling phone. Yeah, I guess I haven't looked at brushed stainless steel recently, but the only reason I would rather have aluminum is just because it's lighter. I really think it's weird that they choose the heavier material on the larger iPhone because that just makes it even heavier and kind of harder to hold. Maybe it's a durability argument, but I think it's the glass that helps iPhones not bend so much and the overall thickness. If I could, my dream iPhone setup, if you're asking me, I guess I like titanium. Titanium's lighter than steel, but steel's heavier than feathers. But aluminum would be even lighter than titanium and would have the matte finish. So like a matte black, like get the blackiest blackety black steel, aluminum you could get on the chassis of a Pro iPhone with the frosted glass. You would have so minimal fingerprints because I don't like the glossy steel on my 13 Pro Max. It's still very fingerprinty and you get the oils and you get the smudges and all that crap. Is a Hermes Apple Watch worth it? I'm intentionally pronouncing Hermes wrong for the record before you correct me. Probably not. I don't know what the association. Maybe Apple's just trying to preserve the luxury brand feel. I guess I don't know, but yeah, that's a weird partnership, and you get like one custom watch face and one okayish watch band, and then it costs like $600 more. Like I don't buy into that. I mean, it's Apple Watches are already luxury in my opinion. You don't need to have a specific fashion brand. It's like, dude, you're spending $400 plus on a watch. Who cares what logo? It's an Apple. That's already a lot of money. I mean, I know people in my personal life that would look at me like an idiot, like I'm an idiot, if I told them how much I spent on this watch. It's kind of pricey and it's kind of absurd. Um, but it's something I like and I appreciate, and it's something I use every day, so I'm comfortable spending a bit more on it, just to protect it and make it durable. And it's something that looks nice and I enjoy looking at, so it's part of it's. I feel naked if I don't have the Apple Watch at this point, but like paying a little bit more just so that I get a specific watch face or a specific watch band that only this company makes, and I don't know. I don't buy into that. I feel like you're already buying into luxury when you buy an Apple product. Um, it's at least a lot of people who don't like Apple usually call them a luxury brand. Some people don't think of them as a luxury brand just because they're so popular, and they're like, well, if it's luxury, it has to be rare. It has to be hard to find, and Apple's not hard to find at all. Everybody's got Apple Watches, so it can't be luxury. But it's pronounced Hermes. Got it. Thank you. I'm sorry. I just want to point out how Titus spelt it the exact same way and said it's pronounced like I'm just supposed to read it differently. I see the parentheses thing, but AirPower's dead. Please give up. Do you think Apple will remove slide bar in iOS? If they haven't by now, I don't see why they would in the future. I've been asking for that since the beginning. I remember in 2017 being like, I'm not sure what you mean by the slide bar. I assume you mean like the little bar at the bottom. But at least on the home bar with the iPhone 10, I was like, yeah, it's kind of cool so people know how to go home. But I wouldn't mind it if they just got rid of that and moved the content down a little bit lower for people who know how the phone works. I feel like the gesture control of iPhones has been around for long enough that Apple can probably start assuming that people know how gestures are. Um, it's pronounced overkill. Oh my god. I live in Germany. We have a 0205 o'clock and I watch your videos. Wow. Thank you, SD, for staying up late or early or whatever. I believe it's pronounced Hermes, actually. See, everyone's saying I'm right. Thank you. Fingerprinty equals grippy. I don't drop my phone. I'm sorry. If you're worried about grip, buy the red hydrogen one or something. I don't know. You know that movie, Don't Look Up? It was weird. It's kind of fine, but not the best movie, not the worst. It was just kind of funny. But what was weird is in Don't Look Up, everybody had the red digital phone. The one that flopped that, Marquez had such high hopes for, and then it sucked. Everyone in that movie had that phone, and I was trying to figure out why. I was like, did they have a bunch of these that never sold? So red, like, I think I had a theory. It was like the movie was probably shot on red digital cameras, and because they got some partnership with Red Digital, they were probably like, we need all of the people in this movie to be using, different smartphones, or, everyone has a phone. So Red was like, we have a bunch of these red hydrogen ones that never sold, and since you're buying a bunch of our cameras anyway, we'll give you all our old phones. It was just so weird because the red hydrogen, like, no one talks about it anymore. It hasn't been sold for years, and yet there was like this fairly new modern movie coming out, and everybody in the movie had that one phone. I was like, this is so bizarre. Did anybody else find that weird? Do you think the 14 Pro Max would be awesome? It'll it'll probably be the best iPhone ever if you consider that awesome. I don't think it'll be that much different from my 13 Pro Max though. Right now, I think the 13 Pro Max is the best iPhone ever to exist, and the 14 Pro Max will be a little bit better, and the eye hole will be slightly worse, but the camera will likely be a little bit better. Do you use MagSafe chargers or regular Lightning to charge your phone? I use my MagSafe Duo every single night. I know it was expensive, and I know some people hated it, but that thing is so easy to take with you on a trip. It's very small. It fits on our little nightstand perfectly, so I always drop my watch and phone every night. Almost, I pretty much never use Lightning on my phone. The more I think about it, um, was the movie Don't Look Up? Yes. I find everything weird, bro. This is a weird place. That's fair. I do not use a case with my phone. No, I just don't drop it. It's not a problem. Hopefully, the next Apple Watch has a longer battery life because that's the only thing that hasn't improved all these years. I get the feeling that because the Apple Watch has had the same 18-hour battery life since Gen 1, and it's still the case now, it's going to be like iPads. Like every iPad has 10-hour battery life, and it's never changed. So, Mark Gurman did mention that watchOS might have a low power mode for the Apple Watch that expands the capability, which I think might be a really good idea. Like if you could say, turn off the heart rate monitor, turn off blood oxygen level checking. It does that randomly, by the way. I'll notice if it's in a dark room and I'm just like watching a show on my iPad or something. Suddenly, I'll see the lights on the back of the Apple Watch light up, and it's like just checking your blood oxygen or checking your heart rate. It just does it periodically, which is good, I guess. But if you were trying to prioritize battery life, having a expanded low power mode where it's like, okay, you can still get texts, but the motion is reduced, and they turn off a bunch of the pixels and they make it all monotone, and maybe they leave the refresh rate really low, and they get rid of the animations and the motion of the display. Like if they built and expanded on low power mode so that it did a little bit more than just tell the time, because right now you could activate power reserve mode on your Apple Watch and it would probably last like 2 or 3 weeks. All it does is tell the time, but it shuts off everything else. But that's a little bit too drastic for some people because they're like, well, I want to use the Apple Watch for certain things and not others. So the watchOS team has always been impressive. Every year they come up with something else on watchOS that I didn't think of in the past. So maybe they could have some setting where it's like expanded low power mode where you can pick and choose which features work and which ones don't. So you have a power reserve mode where it's like, I want texting to work, but not any activity features. So like, don't check heart rate, don't use the accelerometer, don't use the gyroscope, just only turn on the display when I click the side and still let me check text messages or get a phone call if something comes through or something like that. I don't know. It does it every 10 minutes. That probably comes out of the battery life. MagSafe Duo is rad, but if they could make a trio that charges the AirPods, I'd be grateful. Usually, AirPods aren't, for me at least, I don't typically need to charge AirPods every night. So my usual practice is to like drop AirPods on MagSafe when your phone isn't charging, and then you can use your phone, and then when you need the AirPods, then pull them off. But yeah, there's been a few third-party companies that have made like a MagSafe trio with USB-C. It's kind of cool. It would be nice, for sure. Belkin makes a trio MagSafe charger. Bricks for traveling. I just my international adapter has 4 USB plugs. Charge my phone and friends. Okay, fair enough. Your knowledge is insane, man. I think what's more impressive is my stupidity. There's just an absurd amount of things I know nothing about. And it's all thanks to you. It's because this was my dream job that, I wanted to pursue since I was in high school. And actually, since I was a kid, since I was in elementary school, I wanted to turn YouTube into a job so that I didn't have to finish college or work for some random boss. And thanks to your guys' support in watching these streams and videos and super chatting, you've propped me up for success, which I'm eternally grateful for. But it's resulted in me just becoming really, really in depth with knowledge when it comes to Apple products, and then just completely nothing outside of that. I'm just like a walking Apple thesaurus, and then everything else in life, I don't know what I'm doing. Sam Case says, I'm making brownies, want some? I had a couple the other day, and I gotta go easy. I feel like I'm eating too much, but thank you. It's all thanks to you, exactly. How do you feel about having the iPhone mini as the new SE next year? I'm not sure if they can get the price that low. I think that if you wanted the SE to have an OLED display, it would have to cost more money because OLED displays are not cheap for Apple because they have to buy them from Samsung. And the 12 mini is probably going to drop another $100 anyway. So it's pretty much going to be the SE you already want. I mean, the SE you want already exists. I did the whole video on that. It's like if they drop the price of the 12 mini again, it's gonna start at 529, which is $100 more than the SE. You get Face ID, you get the dual camera, night mode, ultra wide. It still has 5G, but now it has OLED and all that. Um, yeah, it's like it's already a thing. I don't think you actually want the mini iPhone to become the SE. You just want the mini iPhone to become cheaper, which it will. Just give it time. Just be patient. Um, you did it. You did your dream. Now what? Now we try to love other people and make the world a better place, I guess. All the features you mentioned, such as disabling the heart rate monitor, raise to wake, or monochrome display, can be enabled or disabled. We need presets for those. That would be great. Yeah, I'm hoping that's what Mark Gurman implies by like an expanded low power mode, is that you could pick and choose which things change, and maybe a little calculator in that setting that's like, if you turn off all these things, your battery life will be expanded by 50% or 80%. And someone who just doesn't care much about the heart rate stuff or the activity stuff, like you don't need to track my steps or that kind of thing, um, you could get 4 or 5 days of battery life out of your watch just via software. Um, do you think the M2 MacBook Pro will be getting a price hike? Looking to buy one for college? Ooh. Um, it's kind of interesting because the iPad Air didn't get a price hike, even though it gained the M1 chip and center stage and 5G. But the iPhone SE did. But it's probably because the iPhone SE is like a lower price product, so the margin is a lot more delicate, as in like the profit Apple makes on each one. So when the price of manufacturing and inflation hit Apple, the it ate into their Dar, Mr. Zen, thank you for the super chat. He says keep up the great work from Norway. Wow, that's really kind of you, all the way from Norway. Appreciate that. Wow. You guys are being awfully generous today. Why is there all these super chats? uh, you're gonna make me cry. Okay. Anyway, what was the point? Will it get a price hike? I guess it's you know what? I'm gonna say no. I have a prediction as to why it won't. So originally there was a report from Mac Rumors that claimed Apple was going to launch an M2 MacBook Pro at the March event. Here we are in April. That obviously didn't happen. So either that leaker is fake or wrong, or maybe that product got delayed. But I'm just going to go ahead and guess, because that person thought the M2 chip was ready and it clearly isn't, and it probably won't be ready for another couple months. Let's just say that report was wrong, but because they are likely to ditch the touch bar, rest in peace, I'm going to miss the touch bar. I'm sad that it's not on my current MacBook Pro, but to keep the MacBook Pro line more consistent and have the same keyboard layout across all of them, they will probably ditch the touch bar on the next M2 MacBook Pro. And that's probably going to save a lot of money, because that's a big, weird, awkwardly shaped OLED display. I gotta stop saying OLED display. I'm sorry. OLED panel. Someone pointed out that anytime you say mini LED display or OLED display or LCD display, you're saying display twice because the D stands for display. So I've been trying to convince myself, stop saying OLED display. Stop saying it. It's like saying ATM machine. It's weird. But at the end of the day, like, that's going to save probably a couple $100 on manufacturing. And then the M2 chip doesn't really cost anything to include. It's relatively nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and guess there won't be a price increase. It'll be the exact same price, and it will gain MagSafe. Maybe they'll even give it SD card slot, HDMI port, give it some of the legacy ports. But they probably won't give it 120 hertz or the M1 Pro chip or anything like that. It'll just be like the 14-inch MacBook Pro, but without the fancier equipment. And you won't get 3 Thunderbolt ports and that kind of thing. But I predict the price will stay the same. $1,300. That's my guess. Why hasn't Apple given battery life to iPads and Apple Watch? They were willing to give overkill battery life to iPhones and MacBooks. Why the double standard? I think with the Apple Watch, it's just a physical battery capacity limitation. There's very little room for them to increase the battery size. So the only thing you can do is make the graphics and the CPU consume less power, but then the watch becomes less responsive and more buggy, and it takes forever to update. So they don't want to compromise on performance So there's not really much they can do with the watch. It's probably a similar story with the iPad because it's so thin, they can't include bigger and bigger batteries. With the iPhone, they've gotten more clever, but the iPhone's also gotten more thicker almost every year. The one year it didn't get thicker was the iPhone 12, but then the battery life got worse. So basically, because Apple's comfortable making the iPhone thicker and thicker, they can make the battery life better. iPads, for the most part, seem to be getting thinner, a little bit thicker with the M1 chip, but not much. They're still pretty dang thin. Um, yeah, VIN number, PIN number, all those things. Oh, it's diode. Okay, cool. It's diode. Thank God. Thank you. Okay, so we can say OLED display. Whew, that is a tremendous relief. Do you own or plan to own a Galaxy S22 Ultra? No, nothing about that phone looks interesting to me. Um, if you don't have a passcode or wrist detection on your watch, it will not track your heart rate, blood oxygen, and some activity measurements. That could work, but I think it disables Apple Pay. Oh. Really? The passcode turns off the heart rate? Okay. Do you think Apple should make an official television? Yes, please. The TV market is so scattered and so distorted. It would be great if there was just a TV you could buy that was running tvOS by default, and you didn't have to buy the stupid box and put that somewhere on your TV stand. Like, we buy a TV and we just use the built-in Roku because that's what it came with, and it doesn't need any additional HDMI power cable. It's just a Roku and it works fine. If you could buy a TV and it just booted tvOS by default instead of having to buy a whole separate little black box, which is kind of ugly and it's not easy to put somewhere in a stand. So yeah, absolutely, they should make their own. Yeah, you're thinking LCD. Don't say LCD display, but you can say mini LED display or OLED display. Got it. We're learning today, folks. This is what I mean by the extent of my stupidity. iPad Pro brightness acts like 800 nits already because of how anti-reflective it is compared to iPhones. Really? Is it? I feel like it's pretty reflective. Yeah, the TV would be expensive, no doubt, especially considering the Pro Display XDR is 32 inches and it's how much? Freaking $6,000. I don't think they would use the exact same display technology. You know, there's $400 TVs that are 4K and 55 inches, like ours. And there's a way Apple could do it cheap, but they wouldn't because they're Apple. You know, and anytime Apple gets involved with a monitor, it's got to do something weird. But think about how cool that would be for a minute. If they built in a center stage camera to the Apple certified TV, you could build in FaceTime. Apple could use their audio department with, you know, who comes up with the spatial audio for AirPods and MacBook speakers and the studio display speakers. They could build in some really good sound system to the TV box itself and have a camera on there and make it powered by the M1 chip because this thing's expensive anyway, so who cares? And it's like, well, it's great for gaming because Apple Arcade is a thing, right? You buy this TV, let's say it's $3,000. It's got to be expensive, right? It's less than the Pro Display, but it's OLED. That's pretty standard for most OLED TVs. It's probably more on the higher end for most OLED TVs these days. Probably doesn't need to be 120 hertz because most of its life it's going to be playing content that is 24 frames a second or 30 frames a second. So just leave it at 60 hertz. But really good sound system. And if someone FaceTimes you, you can answer it and have the whole family talking to someone on FaceTime with the center stage camera. And I mean, I don't know. If someone rings the doorbell with your iCloud secure video feed, it comes in the corner. I think it already does that or something like that. But yeah. Not with that attitude. I was watching stuff on my MacBook and I noticed that it's not mini LED slash OLED. I definitely want mini LED. I don't think it's as big a jump. Like, because when I used mini LED, or I guess I still do, so yeah, I don't even notice, you can still see the difference between the bezel and the display. Whereas with OLED, it's a bit harder to tell. So it's like mini LED is in between, like the lighting levels. The studio display is quite cheap for our expectations. Remember when we were expecting it to be $3,000? Yeah, but we were also expecting it to be XDR and high refresh rate. So they left out the expensive parts, but kept the price relatively low. Compared to other 4K monitors, it's still very expensive, yeah. But what do you hope for from the iPad Pro update, and what do you think could really happen? I really don't think the hardware is the problem. That's why there's not a lot of hope for me in the next generation iPad Pros, because the hardware is already great. It was great in 2018 and it's great now. It's just that the software can't keep up. So I want there to be a dual boot macOS option and more pro app support, and multi external monitor support to be revamped. I want those kinds of things, but uh, until we get them, all that they can really do with the iPad is give it even more overkill hardware. So what's rumored is they want to bring some kind of wireless charging to the iPad. How stupid is that going to be? And the M2 chip, because the M1 chip is just too slow, right? And I don't know. I guess hardware wise, it would be nice if they put like the 13 Pro Max camera on the back. Why not, right? Like, where else are you going to go with the hardware? There's nothing else you can really do with it. It's already got Thunderbolt. It's already got Apple Silicon. Pretty much the best silicon you can get without a fan. And I don't think they can fit fans into the iPad, so they're not going to give it the M1 Pro or M1 Max. They already gave it mini LED. There's talk that in the future they might be able to push it to OLED. Okay, a little bit better dynamic range, but yeah. Margel says these live streams make membership worth. Great job. Well, thank you for your support for 9 months. Wow, your membership baby has been born. The studio display had 120 hertz, would be worth the price. It would be great, but unfortunately it's impossible because Thunderbolt 4 cannot sustain 5K at 120 hertz. So it maybe could have done 120 hertz if they lowered the pixel density to 4K, but it's Apple. They weren't going to compromise in that direction. I want aluminum unibody iPhones back. No more glass. Well, they'd have to take the L on wireless charging, so I don't think that's going to happen. I expect nothing from iPad Pro. That way I won't be disappointed. Yeah, I anticipate even more crazy overkill hardware. That's just not worth it because the software can't take advantage of it. But it is rumored to come out later in the year. It's probably October, November. We'll get new iPad Pros, and they'll be even more absurdly fast. Because overhead, right? You got to have that overhead. If Apple made a TV, would it be mini LED or OLED? I think OLED would make more sense for a TV. Because you don't have as many concerns about burn-in. The devices Apple puts mini LED on are the type of devices that are on for like hours and hours a day, and they're a lot of the time showing the exact same thing, like your dock or your menu bar. A TV is usually showing, constantly changing information, and there's a lot of OLED TVs already. Do you ever wish we could do YouTube/Safari split screen multitasking on iPhone? I haven't. I've done split screen multitasking on Android phones, and I couldn't find a sweet spot. Even on big ones, like 6.9 inch Android phones, I'll do split screen, and it's the keyboard covers up the whole app. I can only see like one little piece of text at a time. I know some people say they use it, but I could not get used to it. I tried it, and I was like, I cannot find use in this. I already think picture-in-picture on the iPhone is kind of annoying because it's always in the way of something. Even if they let you put it right in the middle, it would be in the middle of content, and when you put it off to the corners or to the side, usually covers up some button that you end up accessing, and then you can't read something. It's like, I don't know. I'm not a buyer into that concept that phones need to have more and more applications playing at the same time on a single screen. I would rather just swipe between apps. It's much easier to me to be like, okay, I'm on Twitter now, swipe over, thanks to gestures, it's really quick. I can just go, boom, now I'm on Discord. Now I can respond to someone on Discord, and then I jump back to Twitter, rather than trying to stuff both of them on the display at the same time. Every time the keyboard brings up, I can barely see what anyone's saying, and I can only see one tweet at a time when scrolling. So I'm sorry. That's just not the kind of guy I am, I suppose. The good news about new iPads is that the older refurbished ones will be less expensive. That's true. Hopefully you'll be able to find a 2018 iPad Pro or even a 2020 iPad Pro for under $600, which isn't that too hard. I still think $1,600 is way too much for the studio display. 27-inch iMac was a much better deal, having mostly the same display and starting at 1.8, coming with a whole computer. Yeah, but that computer, unfortunately, was complete crap because it was Intel. But that shows that what you were paying for when you bought an iMac was not the computer. You were paying for the speakers, the display, the ports, all things that are still present on the studio display. The computer part is semantics. It's like, especially in the ARM architecture era, it's like the computer is like a couple chips. They stuff a whole A13 chip in the studio display. We know that can power a decent number of things. They just kept it simple, but that's where your money's going with an iMac. It's not, you're not spending $1,000 on the computer components. You're spending $1,000 on everything the computer's connected to: the speakers, the display, the webcam, the microphones, all those little things. Um, there's there's a lot of bells and whistles it has going for it that you can't find on other monitors. So that's why my recommendation, summarized, was essentially just, if you really care about those bells and whistles, like you like a well built monitor with an aluminum enclosure, with one size bezel, no logo, very clean, very premium looking, which I understand aesthetics being prioritized because it's a monitor. You're going to be looking at it, and it's going to be sitting on your desk probably for a very, very long time. And the fast charging through the Thunderbolt port, adding more USB-C ports to your MacBook, that's really helpful. Center stage camera can be really cool and fun, especially when you're doing a lot of Zoom meetings and that kind of stuff. And the spatial audio was really impressive. So, yeah, not everybody cares about those things. I'm not saying the studio display is a monitor everyone should get, but if you're in that demographic where you're like, yes, I could utilize the additional USB-C ports, and yes, I do appreciate a premium aluminum design, because most monitors are plasticky and they feel very cheap, and they look kind of dated with the chins and the logos. And if you just wanted something to look clean, it's Apple, right? They want to have a good brand image. They want to look good on a desk, and that's what they were prioritizing when they made the studio display. Apple is not the kind of company that's trying to make the most affordable external monitor. I mean, it's Apple, but let's be honest. Love iPads, but I hate the software. That's so dumb that Apple doesn't want it better. I agree. How noticeable is a 5K screen compared to a 4K? In my opinion, basically no difference. I've used 4K displays that were 32 inches, right, alongside 5K displays that are 27. I don't think the difference is noticeable. I think Apple pushes the resolution a little bit higher so that they can justify charging 3 times the price, just so they could say, well, there's no other 5K monitor that's doing all this stuff. So it's a price ladder thing, but it makes sense, because if they tried to price match it to some other 4K monitor, but Apple still cares about the look and the aesthetic of the metal and the enclosure, they would lose. Everyone would say, well, it's way more expensive and it's the exact same panel. So they tinker with the panel just a little bit. It's business 101. At least you can do split screen on Android. Also, their one-handed features make the big screen on Android worth it. Unlike with iPhones, it's the reason why I use a 13 mini instead of a larger iPhone. Oh, he retracted it. The one-handed phone? I couldn't get comfortable with the one-handed features, but yeah, I'm just like, I'd rather have a small phone rather than a big phone with one-handed features. I can still use my 13 Pro Max with one hand. It's a bit more problematic than the mini iPhone, but doing different operating systems for all their products, well, they kind of do that already. But I've been live for a while now. I could do this all day, but I'm just now realizing my iPad is at 1% battery, and I left my iPhone in the other room. So either the iPad is about to die, and I was just thinking, I'm looking around the room, I would have no way to read the chat with this current setup. The text would be too small on the laptop, and I'd have to go run and get my phone. Plus, I've got to get ready for dinner. So I appreciate the super chats, and I appreciate all your awesome questions. This was a lot of fun, and genuinely, I appreciate you guys supporting the channel and watching. It allows me to have this dream job, and as long as there's people like you guys that are willing to watch and or listen, I'll keep on making stuff. So appreciate all of you, and hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Let me see if I can end the stream with my magic mouse from here. Oh yeah, I can. All right, take care. Bye-bye.